Book 2, Chapter 17 of Resurrection. Countess Katerina Ivanovna's dinner hour was 7:30, and the dinner was served in a new manner that Nekhludoff had not yet seen anywhere. After they had placed the dishes on the table, the waiters left the room and the diners helped themselves. The men would not let the ladies take the trouble of moving, and, as befitted the stronger sex, they manfully took upon themselves the burden of putting the food on the ladies' plates and of filling their glasses. When one course was finished, the Countess pressed the button of an electric bell fitted to the table, and the waiters stepped in noiselessly and quickly carried away the dishes, changed the plates, and brought in the next course. The dinner was very refined, the wines very costly. A French chef was working in the large, light kitchens with 2 white-clad assistants. There were 6 persons at dinner: the Count and Countess, their son, a surly officer in the Guards who sat with his elbows on the table, Nekhludoff, a French lady reader, and the Count's chief steward, who had come up from the country. Here, too, the conversation was about the duel, and opinions were given as to how the Emperor regarded the case. It was known that the Emperor was very much grieved for the mother's sake, and all were grieved for her, and as it was also known that the Emperor did not mean to be very severe to the murderer, who defended the honour of his uniform, all were also lenient to the officer who had defended the honour of his uniform. Only the Countess Katerina Ivanovna, with her free thoughtlessness, expressed her disapproval. "They get drunk and kill unobjectionable young men. I should not forgive them on any account," she said. "Now, that's a thing I cannot understand," said the Count. "I know that you can never understand what I say," the Countess began, and turning to Nekhludoff she added, "Everybody understands except my husband. I say I am sorry for the mother, and I do not wish him to be contented, having killed a man." Then her son, who had been silent up to then, took the murderer's part and rudely attacked his mother, arguing that an officer could not behave in any other way, because his fellow officers would condemn him and turn him out of the regiment. Nekhludoff listened to the conversation without joining in. Having been an officer himself, he understood, though he did not agree with young Tcharsky's arguments, and at the same time he could not help contrasting the fate of the officer with that of a beautiful young convict whom he had seen in the prison, and who was condemned to the mines for having killed another in a fight. Both had turned murderers through drunkenness. The peasant had killed a man in a moment of irritation, and he was parted from his wife and family, had chains on his legs and his head shaved, and was going to hard labour in Siberia, while the officer was sitting in a fine room in the guard-house, eating a good dinner, drinking good wine, and reading books, and would be set free in a day or two to live as he had done before, having only become more interesting by the affair. Nekhludoff said what he had been thinking, and at first his aunt, Katerina Ivanovna, seemed to agree with him, but at last she became silent as the rest had done, and Nekhludoff felt that he had committed something akin to an impropriety. In the evening, soon after dinner, the large hall, with high-backed carved chairs arranged in rows as for a meeting, and an armchair next to a little table with a bottle of water for the speaker, began to fill with people come to hear the foreigner, Kiesewetter, preach. Elegant equipages stopped at the front entrance. In the hall sat richly dressed ladies in silks and velvets and lace, with false hair and false busts and drawn-in waists, and among them men in uniform and evening dress, and about 5 persons of the common class, i.e., 2 men servants, a shopkeeper, a footman, and a coachman. Kiesewetter, a thick-set, grizzly man, spoke English, and a thin young girl with pince-nez translated it into Russian promptly and well. He was saying that our sins were so great, the punishment for them so great and so unavoidable, that it was impossible to live anticipating such punishment. "Beloved brothers and sisters, let us for a moment consider what we are doing, how we are living, how we have offended against the all-loving Lord, and how we make Christ suffer. And we cannot but understand that there is no forgiveness possible for us, no escape possible, that we are all doomed to perish. A terrible fate awaits us, everlasting torment," he said, with tears in his trembling voice. "Oh, how can we be saved, brothers? How can we be saved from this terrible, unquenchable fire? The house is in flames. There is no escape." He was silent for a while, and real tears flowed down his cheeks. It was for about 8 years that each time, when he got to this part of his speech, which he himself liked so well, he felt a choking in his throat and an irritation in his nose, and the tears came in his eyes, and these tears touched him still more. Sobs were heard in the room. The Countess Katerina Ivanovna sat with her elbows on an inlaid table, leaning her head on her hands, and her shoulders were shaking. The coachman looked with fear and surprise at the foreigner, feeling as if he was about to run him down with the pole of his carriage, and the foreigner would not move out of his way. All sat in positions similar to that Katerina Ivanovna had assumed. Wolf's daughter, a thin, fashionably dressed girl, very like her father, knelt with her face in her hands. The orator suddenly uncovered his face and smiled, a very real-looking smile, such as actors express joy with, and began again with a sweet, gentle voice. "Yet there is a way to be saved. Here it is, a joyful, easy way. The salvation is the blood shed for us by the only Son of God, who gave himself up to torments for our sake. His sufferings, his blood will save us, brothers and sisters," he said again with tears in his voice. "Let us praise the Lord, who has given his only begotten Son for the redemption of mankind. His holy blood—" Nekhludoff felt so deeply disgusted that he rose silently, and frowning and keeping back a groan of shame, he left on tiptoe and went to his room. End of Book 2, Chapter 17. Book 2, Chapter 18 of Resurrection. Hardly had Nekhludoff finished dressing the next morning. Just as he was about to go down, the footman brought him a card from the Moscow advocate. The advocate had come to St. Petersburg on business of his own, and was going to be present when Maslova's case was examined in the Senate, if that would be soon. The telegram sent by Nekhludoff crossed him on the way. Having found out from Nekhludoff when the case was going to be heard, and which senators were to be present, he smiled. "Exactly, all the 3 types of senators," he said. "Wolf is a Petersburg official, Skovorodnikov is a theoretical, and Bay a practical lawyer, and therefore the most alive of them all," said the advocate. "There is most hope of him. Well, and how about the petition committee?" "Oh, I'm going to Baron Vorobioff today. I could not get an audience with him yesterday." "Do you know why he is Baron Vorobioff?" said the advocate, noticing the slightly ironical stress that Nekhludoff put on this foreign title, followed by so very Russian a surname. "That was because the Emperor Paul rewarded the grandfather. I think he was one of the court footmen. By giving him this title, he managed to please him in some way, so he made him a baron. It's my wish, so don't gainsay me. And so there's a Baron Vorobioff, and very proud of the title. He is a dreadful old humbug." "Well, I'm going to see him," said Nekhludoff. "That's good. We can go together. I shall give you a lift." As they were going to start, a footman met Nekhludoff in the ante-room and handed him a note from Mariette. "Pour vous faire plaisir, voyagez-tu avec contre mes principes, et j'ai intercédé auprès de mon mari pour votre protégé. Il s'est trouvé que cette personne peut être relaxée immédiatement. Mon mari a écrit au commandant. Venez donc descendre lit, je vous attends. M." "Just fancy," said Nekhludoff to the advocate. "Is this not dreadful? A woman whom they are keeping in solitary confinement for 7 months turns out to be quite innocent, and only a word was needed to get her released." "That's always so. Well, anyhow, you have succeeded in getting what you wanted." "Yes, but this success grieves me. Just think what must be going on there. Why have they been keeping her?" "Oh, it's best not to look too deeply into it." "Well, then, I shall give you a lift, if I may," said the advocate as they left the house, and a fine carriage that the advocate had hired drove up to the door. "It's Baron Vorobioff you are going to see?" The advocate gave the driver his directions, and the 2 good horses quickly brought Nekhludoff to the house in which the Baron lived. The Baron was at home. A young official in uniform, with a long, thin neck, a much protruding Adam's apple, and an extremely light walk, and 2 ladies were in the first room. "Your name, please?" the young man with the Adam's apple asked, stepping with extreme lightness and grace across from the ladies to Nekhludoff. Nekhludoff gave his name. "The Baron was just mentioning you," said the young man, the Baron's adjutant, and went out through an inner door. He returned, leading a weeping lady dressed in mourning. With her bony fingers the lady was trying to pull her tangled veil over her face in order to hide her tears. "Come in, please," said the young man to Nekhludoff, lightly stepping up to the door of the study and holding it open. When Nekhludoff came in, he saw before him a thick-set man of medium height, with short hair, in a frock coat, who was sitting in an armchair opposite a large writing table and looking gaily in front of himself. The kindly, rosy red face, striking by its contrast with the white hair, moustaches and beard, turned towards Nekhludoff with a friendly smile. "Very glad to see you. Your mother and I were old acquaintances and friends. I have seen you as a boy, and later on as an officer. Sit down and tell me what I can do for you." "Yes, yes," he said, shaking his cropped white head while Nekhludoff was telling him Theodosia's story. Go on, I quite understand. It is certainly very touching. And have you handed in the petition?" "I have got the petition ready," Nekhludoff said, getting it out of his pocket. "But I thought of speaking to you first, in hopes that the case would then get special attention paid to it." "You have done very well. I shall certainly report it myself," said the Baron, unsuccessfully trying to put an expression of pity on his merry face. "Very touching. It is clear she was but a child. The husband treated her roughly. This repelled her, but as time went on they fell in love with each other. Yes, I will report the case." Count Ivan Mikhaelovitch was also going to speak about it. Nekhludoff had hardly got these words out when the Baron's face changed. "You had better hand in the petition into the office after all, and I shall do what I can," he said. At this moment the young official again entered the room, evidently showing off his elegant manner of walking. "That lady is asking if she may say a few words more." "Well, ask her in. Ah, mon cher, how many tears we have to see shed. If only we could dry them all. One does all that lies within one's power." The lady entered. "I forgot to ask you that he should not be allowed to give up the daughter because he is ready." "But I have already told you that I should do all I can. Baron, for the love of God, you will save the mother?" She seized his hand and began kissing it. "Everything shall be done." When the lady went out, Nekhludoff also began to take leave. "We shall do what we can. I shall speak about it at the Ministry of Justice, and when we get their answer, we shall do what we can." Nekhludoff left the study and went into the office again. Just as in the Senate office, he saw in a splendid apartment a number of very elegant officials, clean, polite, severely correct, and distinguished in dress and in speech. How many there are of them! How very many, and how well fed they all look! And what clean shirts and hands they all have! And how well all their boots are polished! Who does it for them? How comfortable they all are, as compared not only with the prisoners, but even with the peasants! These thoughts again involuntarily came to Nekhludoff's mind. End of Book 2, Chapter 18.